Well, the question of who speaks for the Palestinians is to some extent unresolved. Besides the issue of Hamas and their representation, there are mandate questions surrounding those who have gone to Washington. Dr. Ziad Asali is president of the American Task Force on Palestine. So I put it like this to him: how legitimate are the Palestinian leaders in Washington?
The PLO remains, quote-unquote, the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people.
But what about their electoral mandates?
This is the big question. Nobody has an electoral mandate. Neither Fatah nor Hamas, not a single member of the parliament. All their terms expired a year and a half ago. And now this is one tool, actually, to provide the legitimacy needed for any agreement should one be arrived at.
Now, when we look at the political makeup of the Palestinian territories at the moment, what percentage would you say, taking Gaza and the West Bank together, what percentage would Hamas have?
We read the polls and we get separate evaluation, but the range is not too far. I think a maximum of maybe 25%. Some people say 18% in Gaza itself where they rule. The polls in the West Bank are less clear. Some people say up to 30 and some people say it goes down to 20. It is still a minority, of course.
Let's say overall 20% of Palestinians support Hamas, something like that. Is it possible to do a deal without that 20% being represented?
Of course it's possible. You know, they are represented as anybody else. That is, nobody is represented. Once you have results of elections, you have a government. You don't have anywhere in the world a group that says, I do not want to accept the treaties that you sign because we are in the minority and reserve our rights not to be part of this government. So at some point in time, this issue has to be resolved by one of two ways. Either new elections, which is clearly needed and should take place, and the other is referendum. Take that proposed set of understandings that the Palestinians might have with the Israelis under the patronage of the United States and go to the public and say, do you like it or not?
I could take your point fully about no one should have veto power, but politically, doesn't there need to be greater representation of the Palestinian people at the talks to achieve success?
No, not necessarily. You know, I think the difficulties right now have really nothing to do with negotiations. Every idea has already been explored between the Palestinians and the Israelis. What is needed now is decision-making. But the decision-maker, in this case, whether it's Abu Mazen on this side and Netanyahu on the other side, he has to be exceptionally sensitive to the opposition, much more sensitive to the opposition than he is to his own constituency, because if there is enough displeasure and disagreement with the terms negotiated, then it cannot be sustained.
Yeah, so I mean, one way of putting that is, would Hamas agree to hold a referendum on a deal in which they had no part?
Well, that's a decision they have to make, and they have to face the Palestinian people. Their main problem in the world, in their day-to-day life, is the occupation. If the negotiations end up with an agreement that ends occupation and provides the basic requirements that the Palestinians have been asking for, it's going to be very, very hard for anybody to oppose that, to tell them we don't want it because there's no room for Hamas in it. Let them face their own constituents.